And good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar on how to make your message stick. And that's probably a fancy term for how do you make your message more persuasive? How do you make your message more influential? How do you make your message have impact on the audience, i.e. the people you're speaking to? And I call that a sticky message. So when I walk out of someone else's seminar and I'm remembering what they've said, they've made their message stick with me. So my aim would be that you would all leave the webinar in half an hour's time with 1 or 2 tips that work for you. So the next time you present, you can make your message more influential, make it stick, whatever terminology you prefer to use. For those of you who have not participated in webinars, please ask questions as we go. Type in the dialog box. Don't wait for me to pause for questions. With half-hour webinars, I tend to go fairly quickly and not stop. So raise a point as we go. Please take notes, and bearing in mind that I do record my webinars, so if you are unable to take all the notes, let me know and I can send you a recording of the webinar. I think most importantly, participate and also apply the knowledge. What could you do in an upcoming seminar, training workshop, presentation to make the information you're trying to convey more sticky and more memorable? Or cast your mind back to a recent previous one. Is there anything you could have done differently? This is the application of the knowledge I'm going to teach you that matters. So we can do lots of training, but unless you implement, unless you do something different, then it may be that you don't get the changes that you would like. So that's how you participate. And welcome, Tim. We just got underway. Okay. So let me start by asking you a question. After you've presented, when you've done a seminar, when you've done a workshop, do you want people to walk out of your presentation remembering what you have said? Do you want them to remember what your core message was? And one would hope that the answer is yes. Sometimes I go to presentations and workshops and people and I walk out thinking that was really nice and I get a warm fuzzy feeling, but in 2 days time if you ask me what they spoke about, I cannot really remember. I can't really remember what they said. I was at my school reunion a few days ago and someone spoke, a high profile person spoke, and I really can't remember what their core message was. They got invited to speak because of their position in society, but I don't think they left me or anyone in the school a core message to walk away with. This information has been adapted from a book by Chip and Dan Heath, 2 brothers. They're researchers, they're academics at one of the universities in the United States, and their book is called Made to Stick. And why is it that some ideas, some advertising things survive and we can still remember them, and others just fade away or die? That's the title of their book, Why Some Ideas Survive and Others Disappear, Made to Stick, Chip and Dan Heath. And they talk about putting these hooks in your message. So this is a photomicrograph of Velcro. The thing with Velcro is that there's lots of loops. This is the stuff that the hooks stick into. It's the number of hooks per square centimeter that increase the strength of your Velcro. So what I want to talk about is you putting as many hooks as you can in your presentation. So the first hook is simply, what's in it for me? What does your message do to me that solves my problem or helps alleviate my pain or reduces my burden? Or on the flip side, how does your message help me achieve what I want to in my life, reach my goals or my key performance indicators? And in terms of that continuum, the pain to pleasure, alleviating pain is a bigger motivator than creating pleasure. So in other words, where is your audience hurting? What are their problems? What are their issues? And how can you help them? How can you help them solve their issues? And one of the ways to look at this is, what headache are you the aspirin for? Most of my work is around people who have a fear and anxiety and nervousness around public speaking. I help people develop confidence to get on their feet and speak and share their message. It takes courage. They've got to deal with fear. Most people understand that that's what I do, and they come to me because they hope, and most times it works, I give them some alleviation of that pain, that trauma before they have to present. What headache are you removing for your clients, for your audience, for the people in your room? One way of looking about this is, what is keeping your audience awake at night? What's giving them nightmares? Or on this side, what are they daydreaming about during the day? What are their aspirations? What are their goals? And if you alleviate pain or create pleasure, you don't have to do any marketing, any selling. You don't have to push anything on them. They will want what you want. They'll want what you give them. They'll want your message. It's marketing 101. What's in it for me? What's in it for me as an audience member? As I listen to you, what are you doing for me? A lot of people, they just give us information, the benefits, the features, and this is what we can do, and I can do this for you. It's called push marketing. And they push ideas, and this is the way you need to do it. And all of you need to exercise extra 30 minutes, 5 veggies, 2 fruit a day, push, push, push. When you remove the pain, it's called pull marketing. You don't have to push anything on me. I'll just buy that message. It's pull marketing. I need that in my life now. So if I can give you a true example. So I'm a small business owner, and every quarter I have to do a BAS. And I know there's some other people on the webinar who also run small business. My BAS, my quarterly business activity statement, where I give the government GST, for the first 4 years of my business was the worst thing. I hated it. It was like pulling teeth without anesthesia. I used to lock myself away for 2 to 3 days. That's Saturday, Sunday, and sometimes Monday, and do all the data entry and reconcile. And finally, 3 days later, I'd have my BAS ready to submit. And I used MYOB, Manage Your Own Books, or Manage Your Own Business. And I bought the software for $300. It was fantastic. Sat on my computer, and I just had to do all this data entry from my shoebox full of receipts, the payments I've received, had to reconcile bank accounts. 3 days. One day I went to a seminar, and they spoke about in the cloud computing and this wonderful software package for small business called Xero, Xero, and it'll reduce your BAS from 3 days to 3 hours. Does he have to sell me anything? Nope. How much does my MYOB cost me? Nothing. I've already paid for it. How much does Xero cost me? About $50 a month. Is that painful? No. This person this speaker who'd spoken about this fantastic software removed so much pain from my life that my BAS is just, I don't even worry about my BAS. I've just done my BAS for the current quarter. An hour now, an hour and a half. Hook number 1, what's in it for me? How do you relieve my pain? The second hook is, what's your one big idea? And I'm going to ask you a question, and please write into the dialog box. What is Nike's, N-I-K-E, Nike shoes, Nike boots? What's Nike's one big idea? And I'll give you a moment. What's Nike's one big idea? Just do it. Thank you. So after you've spoken for an hour, can everyone walk out and just say what your one big idea is? Let me give you another test. And swoosh fitness shoes. Wow. And this only works for the older people, but this is what I'm going to say, and I want you to type in where this comes from. Not happy Jan. Not happy Jan. I can hear Telstra, Yellow Pages. So just to let you know, Pauline and Tim, that hasn't been on television for 10 years. That's what one big idea is. Muriel's wedding, not happy Jan. Okay, I'll have to revisit Muriel's wedding, but we've got 3 people with the Telstra, so not happy Jan when they forget to put the advert in the Yellow Pages and it's gone for a year. Of course, we don't have to worry about Yellow Pages anymore. Barack Obama on his first election night, so 7.5 years ago, spoke for 45 minutes and he said one thing to the people of America. And that thing he said was, yes, we can. Yes, we can. This is the United States of America, and we are facing a global financial crisis. Many of you are going to lose your houses. The banking system's falling around us, but this is the United States of America, and yes, we can. We can come through this. So at the end of the 45 minutes, and he used 3 or 4 other stories, he used repetition, not cheesy, not over-the-top repetition like some of our Australian politicians, but what we had at the end of his 45-minute address on his election night was that, yes, we will come through this. So all I'm saying to you is, at the end of your presentation, what's the one big idea that everybody walks away with? Be clear on that in your own mind. And more importantly, if your one big idea also has something in it for me, I'm going to doubly remember it. The third hook, have a call to action. One of the things I see with presentations is people talk and then they stop talking. Or they talk and they say, so thanks guys, it's been a very nice webinar. I really enjoyed my time with you. I know some of you've traveled a long way. Please have a safe journey home. Have a call to action. Ask your audience to do something. So how are you going to incorporate this new health and safety policy into your workplace to make sure we do zero harm? What is your call to action? That is the third hook. Ask your audience to do something. Use surprise. This is unexpected. This is an amazing statistic. This is an unbelievable statistic. This is something that shocks us. And I will give you just a little model that puts this into context. And it goes a little bit like this. So what you do is you appeal to our guessing machine. So this is what we think is normal. Yeah, appeal to your guessing machine. And then what you do is you then shatter it, smash it, and build the new paradigm, the real paradigm. So let me give you a couple of examples. And those of you who've been to my workshops will probably have heard these before. But let me start with the first one. So I want all of you on the webinar to cast your mind back to the first 18 years of your life. For some of us, like me, it's quite a while ago. For some of you, maybe not so long ago. For the majority of us, and not all of you, I do understand, for most of us, the first 18 years of our life was fairly trouble-free. I grew up on a farm in Denmark, farmer's son, used to go swimming, used to be able to go fishing, played football, played cricket, didn't have to worry about any finances. My mum and dad put all the food on the table, took me around to all my sporting events. Had my first job, part-time job by the age of 14, was earning $2.50 an hour, thought I was really rich. So just remember those first 18 years. I could run all day, I was fit, I was skinny, no cholesterol problems, fantastic time. Had my first car by the age of 17, a canary yellow Toyota Corolla, similar to the color of the pen that I'm using. Had my first kiss by the time I was 18. Just those wonderful, carefree times. I want all of you to just imagine that. Okay, I'm now going to take that away from you. Those 18 years, those first 18 years of your life no longer exist. They're expunged, they're removed, they're wiped from your very existence. The life expectancy of Aboriginal men versus white Australian men is 18 years difference. White Australian men on average live 18 years longer than Aboriginal Australian men. And to me, that is one of the crimes, one of the shames of society. And we know about bridging the gap, and I don't need to say any more about that. So rather than just saying, did you know life expectancy of white Australian men versus Aboriginal Australian men is 18 years, I've used surprised. I've appealed to your guessing machine. I've shattered it. Now I've built the real paradigm. Let me give you one other quick example. I want you to move forward now. For some of us like me, it's not that far away. For some of you, it'll be a long way away. You're now 65 years old. You're retired and you're living your perfect retirement lifestyle. What are you doing? You've got all the money in the world. You've got all the time in the world. What are you doing with this retirement? You've earned it. You deserve it. Just soak up the pleasure of this ideal retirement. Are you traveling to Europe every year, to one of the romantic cities, Prague, Paris, Rome, Vienna? Are you driving around Australia in a four-wheel drive, following the sun, escaping the cold Victorian winters, escaping the harsh North Australian heats, and exploring our fantastic country? Are you using your retirement to help your children or your grandchildren with their business or buy their first house? Just enjoy your retirement and imagine what it would be like. You've deserved it. Right, can I have everybody back? I don't know where you were, but 90% of Australians fail to retire with an income or a lifestyle that they hope to achieve. 90% of us fail to achieve our retirement dream. 9 out of 10 of you on this webinar, I don't know where you were, what you were doing in your retirement, but you probably will not get there. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Peter Dew, and I'm a financial planner, and I want to talk to you about the strategies that you can put in place to make sure that you do reach those dreams. I'm not a financial planner. Appeal to their guessing machine, shatter it, build the new paradigm. I was doing some work in Wodonga a few years ago, and one person said, go home, turn on your tap, have a cold glass of water. 10 years later, go home, turn on your tap, and a little bit of mud comes out of your tap. Good afternoon. I work for North Eastern Rural Water, and the reality is unless we start to conserve water, recycle water, and find additional water sources, this community cannot assume they're going to get water out of the Murray. Appeal to what they think's normal, break it, shatter it, then build the new paradigm. That's one way of putting a hook. Life expectancy of Aboriginal men versus white Australian men, 18 years. I'm sure you've got that. Make your message concrete. If you use data, if you use statistics, make it something that people can remember. Complex data, numbers that we can't remember. The data is important, I understand, but if people don't remember it, then it's of very little value. So let me start with an example that comes from the Heart Foundation. And I know we've got a couple of health professions on the webinar. And I want you to remember this. So in a lifetime, the human heart in an average lifetime pumps 350 billion litres of blood. So that's the number, 350 billion litres of blood. So the reality is that the human heart is the most efficient of pumps known to mankind. That's man-made, that's the rhinoceros and the whale. The little pump, which is the size of a tennis ball that sits in our chest, is the most magnificent and efficient pumps on this planet. Are you all going to remember 350 million litres when I ring you up in 6 months' time? Besides re-looking at the webinar, who's got that 350 million litres pretty well locked away? You think you're going to remember 350? Okay, some yes, some no. Okay, so let me help make it concrete. I want you to go home, or after this webinar, I want you to go into your kitchen and I want you to turn on your kitchen tap, your faucet, whatever you want to call it. I want you to turn it on full bore and I want you to leave it running for 45 years. 45 years. That's 350 million litres. That is 350 million litres. And those of you in Karratha or the mining sector, the human heart in an average lifespan will fill 3 super tankers full of oil. Yep, so it's just about making your data concrete. I read somewhere that they put an energy efficiency system through Brookfield House, the BHP headquarters in Perth, and they were able to save 25 Olympic swimming pools of water per year. There's a number of billion litres around that, or million litres around that, but it's 25 swimming pools of water. That's a significant freshwater saving because of waterless urinals and other water-saving devices. So make your data concrete if you want people to remember it. What can you use to make your data concrete? Let me give you one other quick one. Sharks. Fear of sharks. On average, 0.3, and of course a young West Australian got his foot bit by a shark near Mantra just last week. On average, 0.3 deaths in Australian waters occur to shark attack every 12 months. So that means about every 3 years there's a fatal shark attack. Does that lessen your fear of shark attack? Probably not. So let me make it more concrete for you. Every year, 200 more people lose their lives around Australia from kangaroo attack. 200 more people use their lives from the kangaroo than from the shark. And that's the shark that, jumps through your car window. Car versus kangaroo. Not the shark that jumps through, that's the kangaroo that jumps through your window. So it just shows you there's different ways of presenting the data. 0.3 deaths per year is that's not going to help me lessen my fear of being involved with a shark attack. Recognising that every time I drive down to Denmark or Margaret River or Albany or even up north to Karratha, that you're 200 times more likely to lose your life from a kangaroo than a shark. Wow, that does put into perspective. So those of you who are up north and don't swim all that much. Please, I hope I haven't created a new phobia around kangaroos. I'm just trying to show you how you can change data to have greater impact. The last hook is credibility. Where does your credibility come from? Without credibility, you will have very little impact. And it doesn't just come from one thing. It's called your credibility stack. So part of my credibility stack comes from the fact that I'm a person who stutters, the fact that I now do public speaking for my living, the fact that I go to Toastmasters, and the fact that I run my workshops and I also demonstrate public speaking skills, so people now understand that there's several things in my life that I've used to help people understand around the fear of public speaking. I also borrow some credibility, and don't underestimate the power of borrowing credibility. I use a couple of quotes. One is from Mark Twain, and Mark Twain says, "There's two kinds of speakers in the world, those that are nervous and those that are bloody liars." In other words, everyone is nervous. So when I try to tell people the nerves are not going to go away, sorry guys, you're always going to have your nerves. It's about controlling them and harnessing the energy. And Mark Twain said, there's two kinds of speakers, those that are nervous and those that are liars. See how I've borrowed some credibility. So that's also adding to my credibility. I also use quotes from Winston Churchill. So you can borrow credibility. Where does your credibility come from? Without credibility, you could be in serious trouble. People may not believe you. Your message may not stick. Some of you will know that there was a young West Australian scientist in the early 1980s who discovered what caused peptic ulcers, ulcers of the stomach. And he went around the world saying, hey, I can cure peptic ulcers. They're caused by a bacteria called Helicobacter pylori. Nobody believed him for 8 years. And they said, where's this guy from? He's crazy. Everybody knows the stomach is full of hydrochloric acid. Bacteria can't survive in hydrochloric acid. Everybody knows peptic ulcers come from stress, from bad diet, from too much alcohol. What's this young West Australian scientist talking about? Where does he come from? Does he come from King's College in London? No. Does he come from Harvard Medical School? No. Does he come from University of Sydney School of Medicine? No. He comes from Fremantle? Where is that? Surely this guy's got to realize he doesn't know what he's talking about. So he had to go back to his laboratory after 8 years of banging his head against brick walls, rejection after rejection. And he grew up overnight a culture in the incubator, a culture of 1 billion Helicobacter pylori. The next morning, he drank it, and 3 days later developed severe peptic ulcers. He did the endoscopies, the biopsies, the tube down his throat with one of his colleagues, took the biopsies, took the pictures. Then he took the antibiotic that worked in the mice and the rats. 3 days later, the peptic ulcers were resolved. He did further endoscopy, took the photographs, took the biopsies, went back out to the world and said, hey guys, I know what causes peptic ulcers. Here is the proof. And of course, I'm talking about Professor Barry Marshall, the Nobel Prize winner for medicine. Doesn't matter how right you are. He was 100% right. How correct you are. Doesn't matter how many millions of lives your discovery could have saved in those 8 years. If you have no credibility, people don't trust you. They won't remember your message. They won't buy your message. So every time you put a presentation together, try and put one of those hooks in it if you can. So what's in it for me? How are you going to alleviate my pain? What headache are you and your message the aspirin for? What's your one big message? This is the Nike, just do it. What are you going to ask me to do? What's your call to action? Ask me to do something. Ask me to write to my Member of Parliament. ask me to change my policy, change my position. Use surprise, use some statistics, use some data. Appeal to my guessing machine and then shatter it and leave me with a new paradigm. Convert your data to something concrete, something memorable. So guys, you got to turn on your taps for 45 years. That's 350 million litres of blood, or 3 super tankers full of oil. And your credibility, without credibility, you may not enjoy the level of buy-in from your audience that you deserved. And Professor Barry Marshall was a perfect example of having it right, but not getting the impact, not getting the message, the persuasion, the influence that he perhaps needed earlier on. So feel free to email me any further questions. I'd welcome your comments. And remember, what 1 or 2 things will you do differently from this webinar to the next time you present, train, or facilitate? What's going to make your message stick? Thanks, guys.